guys are here and joining us, we get to talk about one of my very favorite subjects about tutoring, and that is reading. Woo! So reading obviously has always been a passion of mine because that's what I do. I know that I usually am helping a lot of you guys out. I'm so glad that you guys are here and joining us. I get to talk about one of my very favorite subjects about tutoring, and that is reading. Today we are going to be sharing reading obviously great tips for you guys. I'm going to passion of mine because that's what I do. To come share some of the tips that I usually am helping a lot of you guys out. I'm so glad that you guys are here and joining us. I get to talk about one of my very favorite subjects about tutoring, and that is reading. Today we are going to be sharing reading obviously great tips for you guys. I'm so passionate of mine because that's what I do. To come share some of the tips that I usually am helping a lot of you guys out. I'm so glad that you guys are here and joining us. I talk about one of my very favorite guys about tutoring, and that is today we are going to share great tips for you guys. I'm so passionate of mine because that's what I do. I'm share some. I know that I usually helping a lot of you guys out. I'm so glad that you guys are here and joining us. Very favorite guys about tutoring, and that is today we are going to share great tips for you guys. I'm so passionate of mine because that's what I do. I'm share some. I know that I usually helping a lot of you guys out. So glad that you guys are here and joining us. Very favorite guys about tutoring, and that is today. So tell us great tips for you guys. I'm so passionate of mine because that's what I do. I'm share some. I know that I usually helping a lot of you guys out. So glad that you guys are subject to very favorite guys about tutoring, and that is today. So great tips for you guys. I'm so passionate of mine because that's what I do. I'm share some. I know that I usually helping a lot of you guys out. So glad that you guys are subject to very favorite guys about tutoring, and that is today. So great tips for you guys. I'm so passionate of mine because that's what I do. So I know that I usually helping a lot of you guys out. So glad that you guys are subject to very favorite guys about tutoring, and that is today. So great tips for you guys. I'm so passionate of mine because that's what I do. So I know that I usually helping a lot of you guys out. So glad that you guys are subject to very favorite guys about tutoring, and that is today. So great tips for you guys. I'm so passionate of mine because that's what I do. So I know that I usually helping a lot of you guys out. So glad that you guys are subject to very favorite guys about tutoring, and that is today. So great tips for you guys. I'm so passionate of mine because that's what I do. So I know that I usually helping a lot of you guys out. So glad that you Awesome. Very, very cool. We were having a little issue on our tech, so I am looking to see if it is Awesome. Very, very cool. We were having a little issue on our tech, so I am looking to see if it is Awesome. Very, very cool. We were having a little issue on our tech, so I am looking to see. So thank you guys for letting me know that there was a problem with Awesome. Very, very cool. We were having a little issue on our tech, so I am looking to see. So thank you guys for letting me know that there was a problem with log off on my tabs and see if that fixes it. Let's see. Sorry about that, guys. Tech difficulties. They are something that you have to get used to. I think that's something that is really, really like stressful sometimes when people get started with tutoring online. They think, oh, if I'm not good at tech, then I'm never going to be able to figure out how to do tutoring online. But honestly, it's all about like being problem solution oriented. Um, and so I think that's really the big piece of it. So sometimes you just have to be willing to kind of go with the flow when it comes to it. Have you experienced any technical difficulties with your reading tutoring, Justine?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I can't really think of a story about it right now, but the kids are, they're fine. They just go with the flow. So it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. Yeah. Like if you can't find something or something glitches, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you just say, oh, sorry about that. Well,
Yeah, exactly, exactly,
again.
exactly. And I think that's so cool because I mean, like right now, we just had like an issue like with the tech, and yep, remaining calm is so important when those kinds of
hmm
things happen, and just fix it, right? And
hmm
and there you go. Like one of the problems I've seen some of my students have is sometimes they forget to turn on the sound, and they X out of the sound when they come on
Oh,
for tutoring. And so then they're like, I can't hear you and I can't hear them, right? And so that's one of the biggest difficulties. But once I have them log out, come back in, it's usually all fixed and it is all good.
yes,
Um,
I've definitely had that one before, but I've never known how to fix it. I'm just, that's what I say. I say, just log out and come back in.
yeah.
Hopefully it
And
works.
and that's a good way to fix, because they just don't realize that they're clicking on that X.
And a lot of things I do too that solves problems is I'll just stop the screen share and then restart it. And a lot of
Yep.
like any issues that I have go away.
Yeah. And do you use Zoom when you do your reading tutoring?
Yeah, I use Zoom, and some of the kids are pretty savvy on it. And so, in fact, we were just talking about this last week when I asked you, I said, somehow this guy is able to block things out, right? Like, so I can't see things. And it turns out he was using annotations, like putting shapes up on it. So I couldn't see anything, but all of a sudden, like a whole square would be missing. I couldn't read it. And he was doing that to, play with me and trick me. And so it's so great that now I know what he's up to. And I just don't even miss a beat. I just, stop share, come back on, and then I disable annotations for him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so I think that's a beautiful thing is like once you get used to, and I think like brainstorming too, because you're like, okay, I don't know what the kid's doing, but tell me what he's like, does anybody know what he's doing? And I was like, oh yeah, I totally know what he's doing. Because I had one of my students that he'd be so smart for our books. I use Kindle. And so the next page, he was whiting it out. Like I'm not like I don't just normally just click there anyways. And so all of a sudden he looks at me and he goes, how did you know how to click the next page? And I'm thinking, why are you asking me that question? And then I look and I'm like, oh, you little stinker. You put a little white block on there so I couldn't see the next page. I'm like, nah, it's just second nature to me. Or I use the arrow on my keyboard, but good try. I guess I'll have to take the annotation off for you so that you don't get distracted. And there you go. You just like turn it off. But I think the annotation too can be like a really great feature when it comes to teaching reading. Have you been able to use that feature when you've been
No,
teaching
I
reading?
haven't. How does that work? How do you
So
use it?
when you're using the annotation, I can actually you can annotate on my screen, and I can annotate on the screen too. So a lot of times I have a pen that I can actually just kind of like write on my screen with.
Mm-hmm.
But I can also do text on my screen. So let me show you guys like what that will look like when we do that. I'm going to come on over, share my screen, and go to Kids A to Z here so that you guys can see that. I'm also going to share for Justine as well. And let's just go to Ty. And whenever we are reading a book together, I'm just going to go to Reading Room, choose Ancient Egypt, and come on in. But let's say he was struggling with reading the word mummy here. It's one of our words. I can actually draw on the screen using annotate, and I can click right here. But the other thing that I can do is I can say, all right, I'm going to have you use your annotate feature, Justine. Can you do spot and dot for me?
Oh.
So let's see if you can use the annotate to do the spot and dot. So you're going to click on annotate on your side. It looks like the pencil. And this is how I
Okay.
kind of like walk them through it. I'd be like, okay, so you're going to find the thing that looks like a pencil.
Okay. And where do I look for that?
It's at the top, or at the bottom. So you might have to like just kind of move your arrow until a drop down menu comes down.
Okay. Shoot. I'm kind of, because I just have, am I looking in the Zoom settings or the?
So
Yeah, right?
are you, yeah, so you're just in the regular, like right now you're looking at my screen, but you should be, if you like take your arrow, move it towards the bottom, move it towards the side, move it towards the top.
Oh,
See if
I
anything
found it.
drops
It's
down.
it's on the top under view options and then it says annotate.
Yep.
Okay. Now I see it. Now I have a pencil and I also have a pen too, because that is a tool that I invested in.
Awesome.
So yeah. Okay. So I'm going to do spot and dot for mummy.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to first write the word mummy. And now, okay, I'm looking, I see a vowel. So I put my up there. Am I going to consider E or Y?
Yep. Y is a vowel here because it's at the end of a word. Yep.
Okay. Now I draw my line and I see two consonants. So I'm going to go down there.
Yep.
Okay.
And so what's the first part?
Mum.
And the second part?
Me.
You got. And if they say my, I'll be like, oh, you know what? Y also makes another sound. It says E. And so try it with E. You know, if they were to look at that and read it as a word versus reading it as a syllable. But they can also even do it like right on inside of the book as well. So I think that's kind of cool. I'll use like the highlighter to do the dotting when I dot it, because it makes a nice big mark. And then what I'll do is I will connect those dots and then we will break the word apart, and then they are able to read it. Both ways work. Another thing that you can do is you can do text. So I could actually write out what's this part, what's this part.
I love that. I've been doing something similar, but not using annotate. So basically I would split the screen. So I have this here, and then I have the OneNote on that side, and then just do it that way.
Yep. And that is certainly another thing. So what she's saying here, you guys, is when I'm going to log out of my clear all of my drawings and show what she's talking about. So OneNote is a great tool that I use to kind of organize the work that I'm doing with my students. You can see that I have all of my students on the side here, and I have the work that we're working on inside of here as well. But if I wanted to do like a new page, I just add new page, but then watch this. I can make this kind of a bigger white screen. I do this, and now I'm going to do a split screen so that I can have an entire split screen. Now I can make this bigger if I want to. I can have the book take up more space and just do the writing all over here on the left-hand side. So that's a really nice way to, you know, I think the beautiful thing is it's not necessarily that one tool or one way is like a better way to do it. It's just knowing what tools are available to do what it is you want to do.
Exactly.
And then finding the tool that's going to work best for you to do it. In the beginning, I used PowerPoint books, and I would write on the PowerPoint books. And that's how I got started, because I didn't know about Raz Kids or Plus or Kids A to Z or any of that cool stuff. So are you currently using, like it kind of brings on up, are you currently using Raz Kids or Kids A to Z?
Yes. So I do. I have a subscription to that. And I use that. Basically, kind of, I guess one thing that I found that's helpful for me is I just try to follow the same routine each time with each student. And for most of them, that's going to be beginning with like phonological awareness and phonics is my first like 15 minutes or something. Do that and then go into the other things. So I kind of like have the phonics, I do kind of stuff. I do it from Raz Kids sometimes. They have under foundational skills, they have lessons for phonics, and I've used those. And I'll, but it's again, I use OneNote. So what I'll do is I'll do word sorts with them, and then OneNote's so great because you can just move the little pieces all around and do sorts. So it's really, So I've used that. And then I also when it's their turn to like pick their book, then we go to their level that they're in for Raz reading reading room. And I just say, okay, I'm going to slowly scroll, and then, tell me when you see something that looks interesting to you. And then that's the one we do. And when we get to the end of it, then we do the fun games and that kind of thing. And that's kind of the routine. So basically the, phonics, and then, some kids are fluency. So I do the fluency passages too.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and then the reading, and then, just the activities.
It really is
flow.
such it's a comprehensive tool, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
If you're a reading tutor, I feel like a lot of people they'll say to me like, okay, Joanne, everything seems to cost money when I start my tutoring business. Like I've got to get a website and I have to get this and I have to get that. And every business has some startup costs, but like this one pays for itself over and over and over again because you use it with just about all of your students. And it's got every single tool in there that you need. Like you really don't need to leave there unless you want to for it. But are there other tools besides like Kids A to Z or Raz Kids that you utilize with your teaching?
Yes. So vocabulary, I do use that one too, because that's really fun because the kids can learn through a rap song and most kids really like that. And they have all kinds of things in there. And then the other one for like the older kids, I do use Common Lit, that website, Common Lit.
Yeah.
I like that one too because you can there's comprehension questions as you go and vocabulary. So that one's nice. And it's just also, I like it because it's real content and not like made for a leveled system. It's actually, real like writing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of people will ask, like, Joanne, is there any program that's out there that's like, Kids A to Z for older kids? And I wish there was like a better all comprehensive kind of tool like A to Z for the older kids, but there really isn't. The commonlit.org is good, but it's not as good as like all the resources and tools that are inside of Kids A to Z. But it also really doesn't cost anything either. Like you can use a free version of it and get a lot of bang for your buck. Yeah, Janice, it's called Common Lit, and it's commonlit.org, right?
I think so.
Something like that. Otherwise, just go on in and just put on Common Lit and check that on out because that'll be a great resource for those older kids. I ended up reading a book about Malala, and then Malala's speech when she got the Nobel Peace Prize was actually in Common Lit. So like you said, like it's got some regular things. They weren't actually designed and written for a leveled system, but you can figure out what the Lexile is and kind of choose some great text based off of the Lexile and the grade level versus like a to Z leveling system. So it is a great tool to be able to utilize. How about I know like one of the big pieces for me when I got started with tutoring was I wanted to be able to have like a good assessment for being able to find out what specifically do my kids already know and where do I need to close the gap? Do you use an assessment at all with your students before you start working with them?
I do. So I follow the system that you outlined in the classes that I've taken. And so I have the Pearson assessment. So I offer a free assessment for people who are interested in tutoring with me. And it's great because then I can, I listen to the kids read, I get an idea of how they're doing, and then I'm able to put together a nice report for the parents. So basically it starts off with reading words in isolation to try to get an idea of where you should start the passages, the longer. And then I usually do the narrative and the expository. Since it's just an hour, I don't always necessarily get to listen to them read at every single level to determine exactly like instructional, frustration, and independent, but I get enough information for me in that time that I need. And so I know where to start them then for the tutoring. And then the plan is, I'm just going to be coming up soon on 3 months now. And so then I will reassess them again using, like if there was 2 narrative passages, then I'll use the other one now, or, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And that'll be really useful for you because then you'll be able to see, okay, have they made any growth in the amount of time that I've been able to work with them? And sometimes they make more growth than you expected. You're like, wow, I just tested a kid that I was like, I feel like I'm going nowhere. I feel stagnant. I feel like he's not getting anything. And then I had him take the test and I was blown away. I was like, and this is half the reason why I do the assessment at the 3 month, at the 6 month, at the, I do that every 3 months, because you can feel totally stagnant and then you can go back into the test and do the assessment and be like, okay, this isn't a waste of my time, because it can feel like that when you feel like, oh my gosh, he didn't get that. He didn't get this. And you reteach it and you're reteaching. It can be so frustrating, but I think you're really going to enjoy being able to see the growth that your students are making with you, being able to use it. So those of you who are not familiar with what that Pearson test is, it's called QRI-7. It is $10 a month to be able to get it. And you need to have it for at least like 4 months. You can download the passages. So you can download them all on your computer and have them. And so that at the 4 month mark, if you want to cancel, you can, but you still have all the passages. So,
yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Well, they changed their system on me, because when I bought the 7, because I've actually got like every one, I like to see like what are the differences and compare them. And so I can chat with them with people, but I've been using the QRI since it was in the 3rd version. Now it's in the 7th version. So I've grabbed each of them. But when I first purchased the QRI-7, it was $40 for the year. I was like, oh, that's cool. I wonder if they move to like a QR-8. Does that automatically just move me into the QR-8 versus making me pay for the QRI-7 again and then purchase the QRI-8? Like, I was curious to see how are they going to handle that, right? And I don't know the answer to that, but I swear it was like 3 months later, I got this message from somebody saying, yeah, it's now $10 a month. Is this the same one? And I like look at the link. I'm like, it is. They changed their system again, like their pricing system. It used to be just a book that had a DVD that you put on in. Like, I'm really dating myself now, aren't I? Like, it had one of those like CD-ROMs that you put into your computer. We don't even have like CD-ROMs half the time in our computers anymore. But yeah, it was a great resource and a great tool, and that's why I used it for online, because it was like everything's digitized. I don't have to digitize it. I love it. And somebody just asked me the question, are you using QRI-7 instead of QRI-5 now? Why did you switch? It's not necessarily okay, so yes and no. I'm going to answer that question for you. You could still use the QRI-5, you're fine. Some of the passages get outdated. So the content in the passages, like in one of them, I believe, I don't know if it was in the 4 or the 5, but the girl for her birthday gets a VHS tape for her birthday and her family is on it. So in the QRI-7 version, the girl is Skyping with her family.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right. So there are just some little changes like that get made to update the passages to the times. And so it's not necessarily that I'm switching, because it's the same assessment, right? It's an updated version of the assessment. So I always personally update, but that's because I'm in a different position as you guys, right? I always want to know what's in the new version so that when you guys ask me, do I need the QRI-7 or should I get the QRI-5? I can answer the question for you. I mean, if the QRI-5 is going to be cheaper for you and you want to purchase the QRI-5, go for it, right? You absolutely can do that. The other question people will ask me is, do I need to have the hard copy of it? Not necessarily. I don't even use the hard copy anymore. Do you use the hard copy at all?
I don't have a hard copy.
No, you don't even have a hard copy. So right. I have it on 2 different screens. On one screen, I have the questions, and on my other screen, I have the passage for the kid.
Yeah, I think having 2 different screens is a really good idea, and that's something I want to also set up. I have another monitor behind me, but I'm actually just using it as kind of a barrier. It's not set up. But I think that would be really helpful, because there's so many times where I want to be looking at my cheat sheet or something like that, and I can't because I'm on the screen with them. So,
you want to know another cheat to that? So if you don't have to be sharing your screen, another cheat to do that is to minimize your view, because then you can still see them while you have that in front of you. So I do that with my phonemic awareness activities. where they don't need to see anything. They're like, I'm saying the sounds, and then they blend the word together. I will just put them. So for those of you guys that are on here, I'll show you what that means. Minimize means that I can do this, and now I'm just minimized. So I can still see whatever it is that I want to see on my screen, but I also see the person that I'm talking to, and they don't see my screen. So I know you didn't see that, but they did. I love it. So somebody asked a question, Tiffany asked a question, in the free consultation with the parent, do you advise using that assessment during that time, or do you think that should be the first session after sign up? This is totally up to you guys and how you want to do it. I have found, for me, the perfect cycle, and that is get them on a free assessment. So anybody who is like, I don't know about online, all of that, I'm like, you know what? Let's just try out the free assessment. At the end of the day, they have nothing to lose by getting on the free assessment, right? And I know some people think, oh, but that's my time. Yeah, it's your time doing something that you would need to do anyways. You have to find out where the child's at, right? Like, I don't know how you could teach reading to a child, but not know where they're at. I don't even know how to go about that process. It would be like taking a dart, closing your eyes, and just like shooting it at the wall. you would have nothing to go off of. So I need that data anyways. Why not use it as part of the sales process?
Yeah, and I have adopted what you do, and it's worked perfectly. It's worked every single time, actually. Every single free assessment that I've done has converted into client, and it converts right then and there. It's not like, okay, well, let me think about it. It happens right there on the assessment. So it's that last 10 or 15 minutes when you're talking to the parent, then you just say, okay, like you just say right away, right? Like, okay, so this is what I'm noticing, and of course you repeat back what they are noticing too, so it resonates really well. And then you say, this is what I'm noticing right now, but I'm going to, write this up into a report and I'll send it to you. But, so I noticed on your form, because also they've already filled out the form, right? The registration form. So you say, oh, I noticed that like Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3:00 works good for you. Let me look at my calendar. Oh, okay. So should we set that up for this Tuesday? And then it just happens, and it's automatic. And so it's perfect.
I know. It's got a really high conversion rate. And so I think that's really the biggest part. I mean, tutoring is the easiest thing to sell to begin with. I've sold a lot of things, you guys, in my life. I was in retail for a long time. I tried selling like this network marketing stuff. I tried selling Usborne books. I have sold a lot of stuff in my life, but selling tutoring services is the easiest thing I've ever experienced in selling. Because you really don't have to sell, right? It's all about like listening to the parent and the child, and then speaking from their needs on how you can be the solution. And so I think that's really, really helpful. And so we had the question, do you offer a free assessment on your website? Yeah, absolutely. That's my next call to action. At all times, everywhere where I can get people to do a free assessment, that's where I put it. So you want to think about, whenever you're trying to get a reading student or get any tutoring student, what is the next action I want them to take? So, everything leading on up, like let's say I create a freebie, right? I want the next session, the next action that they take after they download my freebie to be to get a free assessment. So I have places on my freebie where I have free assessment. On my website, if they land there, I want them to get a free assessment. So I have a button on every single page, not just the first page, not just the last page, not just on the contact page. Every single page has get a free assessment, because that's the action I want them to take. So you have to be very, very clear. What is the next action you want them to take? Now, once I get them onto the assessment, what's the next action I want them to take? I want them to sign up. So at the end of the assessment, after I'm done having a conversation, sharing what I learned, chatting with a parent, the next action to take is to get started. So I say to them, are you ready to get started? And they say, yes, great. And I tell them what's going to happen next. They'll say, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to write up this report, and I let them know when I think I can have it done. So last week, I actually had a free assessment. It was on a Wednesday. Usually I get it done in 24 hours, but I came down with COVID. So I was like, I'm feeling a little under the weather. I didn't tell her I had COVID because I didn't know at that point. I said, I'm feeling a little under the weather, but I will definitely get this out to you by the weekend. Does that sound okay? She said, yeah. Great. What I'm also going to do is I'll send how payment works, all those kinds of things, so that if you have any questions, you can definitely let me know. Sound good? She goes, sounds great. Awesome. And that's it. On the weekend, Saturday morning, I sat down, I wrote up the report, I sent her that email, and we got started yesterday with tutoring. So, I mean, that's simple. And because I already had her payment information, because it was on the registration form, I was able to process it as monthly automatic payment. So easy and simple. I love it.
Yeah.
Yep. And somebody asked me, do you do the consultation and the assessment in the same 1 hour session? So I start with the assessment, and then I move into a sales conversation. I always give myself an hour and a half, unless my schedule doesn't allow for it. But I really would like to make sure I have an hour for the child. And then the rest of the time can be for the parent. Most parents don't take the 30 minutes. But in the beginning, it might take you longer. It could take 15 minutes. It could take 10 minutes. It takes as long as it takes. But I want to make sure that I allot enough time for it so that it can happen. So that's what I do for that process. And I know, Justine, you follow kind of a similar type of process to be able to turn them into students, and it works really well.
Yeah.
So amazing. I absolutely love teaching reading online. And I don't know about you, but Justine, when I started teaching reading online and I no longer had a boss, I kind of fell in love with teaching again. Did that happen for you at all?
Well, I just fell in love with teaching reading because more in my last job, the one at the Italian school, I was really more focused on teaching writing.
Sure.
Because I didn't have enough time because it was an immersion school. So I didn't have a lot of time for English teaching. So I really focused on writing.
Yeah.
And then, So this is amazing to have such a systematic approach now for me for reading and to be able to see it. And also I love the one-on-one. That's where I really like to teach, is one-on-one.
Me too.
Yeah.
You really have a lot less classroom management, all that kind of stuff. However, Raz Kids is coming out with a Learning A to Z. I got to get the name right. So they call themselves Learning A to Z. I've been in meetings with them, and they just recently shared with me they have a new program called Foundations coming out. And I can almost see being able to do small groups online with kids with their Foundations program. And I think that would be really, really cool. So that's something that I want to check on out. There's also a really cool program called Schoolified. It's similar to Zoom, but it makes group teaching a lot easier. So you can be assigning your students to do work, and if they ever tap out at any point and they're not doing what they need to do, you can go right on in and check in on them, see how things are going. Did they get stuck on something? And you can chat with them one-on-one. And then if you wanted to pull them out to, let's say, read a book with you, you could do that. So I'm as soon as Foundations comes on out, I'd love to play with Foundations and Schoolified and see how I can kind of mix them together so that I can do some more small group and see if it's easier on the classroom management, because I don't know about you, but like the whole classroom management thing with Zoom it's just not fun. I don't really enjoy it at all. I feel like I'm always having to mute kids, and you can only talk to one kid at a time. You have all the different background noises. Like some kids are in the kitchen, so you've got banging dishes from the parents who are putting the dishes away, or you've got somebody who's in the living room and their siblings are watching TV, and so it can be really, really crazy. Which is with one-on-one, I just like talk to each of them individually, like, hey, is there another place that you could go so that you don't have the background noise? And it makes it a lot easier to work. Yeah, Schoolified, Janice. Schoolified. Schoolified is a new tool out there that helps with being able to do group classes a lot easier. It was designed for teachers to be able to utilize, and with teaching, like with virtual tutoring and virtual teaching in the classroom, and it's just coming out. So it's a brand new product. It's completely free, 100% free at this point in time, but definitely worthy of checking on out. And we have Cindy who's coming on in. She's going to be joining us in this conversation. She's also has gone through the reading interventionist program and is another reading tutor who is joining us. So I'm so glad that you are joining us, Cindy.
Hi.
Hello.
I don't know if you...
Oh, we can't see you. I'm going to click a button so that it will start your video there. Let's see if that works. Yes, we can see you. Yay. Hello, Cindy.
I'm in my car.
Isn't that the beauty, though, of what we do? Because
Yes.
I have like many times actually taught reading on the go. Like, let's say we're leaving for the weekend. We can leave early because I can just teach in the car.
Yeah.
So it really
That's
does
very
make
cool.
it really, really conducive with the thing, with being able to get on there. So yeah, awesome stuff. So we've been chatting about some of our favorite tools, our favorite resources. And for those guys, I know that you guys actually didn't really get a chance to hear before. Justine share a little bit more about who she was, because we had this weird looping music happen that I was able to finally get turned off. So we'll just start off by introducing you guys again to Justine and Cindy into the platform. So Justine, tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you tutor, and your experience with teaching.
Okay, so I am Justine Forelli, and I was a teacher in the classroom for over 10 years, and I have a varied background. So I started off in Waldorf, and then my first job was at a charter school, so I had to get the California credential, so I got that, and then eventually I also have a background in Italian. I have a bachelor and master's in Italian. That was my first passion in life. And so I was so excited to start working in an Italian immersion school. And I was the English teacher or one of the English teachers at the Italian immersion school. And so I worked there for 5 years. And then just last year, I was a 4th grade teacher in a public school here. And, a lot of it was on Zoom and that kind of thing. And so that's how I got really good at technology. And then this summer, I first read Joanne's book that she had on Amazon, and that got me very curious to know more. And so next thing I know, I did Reading Interventionist and then Jumpstart. And so I basically started in August tutoring with one student, and now I have 15, and it's not even 3 months later. So yeah, so I'm really having a blast. It's really fun. I love it. I'm focusing on reading, although I do a little math too, if people need that. And I also do have now finally an Italian student. I just started this week, so I'm really excited.
Ah, that is exciting. Yay.
Yeah.
Sometimes
And
variety can be the spice of life.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say one more thing, which was that for me, I love reading and I love phonics and all this stuff because I think I just love language in general, from my Italian background. And I just love vocabulary, history of words. So it's just a perfect fit. I'm excited.
Oh, I love it. And Cindy, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you tutor and your experience.
So I am a grandmother. I homeschooled my 5 children and went back to the classroom after that, taught 4th and 5th grade, and retired because my husband had a heart problem, but I'm very healthy and strong, and I see purpose in my days. So to me, one of the most rewarding things about teaching was teaching reading. And I remember a particular boy in my 4th grade class who came and did not even register on the beginning assessment of the year. He was below kindergarten. And he had an aide, and his aide did everything for him. Changing things around, doing basic with him. He ended up at 2nd grade 7th month or something. And it was so good for him. He was so excited instead of coming to school and feeling like I'm the outsider and I can't read like everybody else. And I don't know. It was almost poo-pooed by my team too. Like, you can't really teach him read. He can't even read, little sight words from kindergarten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a very joyful profession to be in, for sure. Because we have that opportunity to take that kid who either is a struggler or doesn't know how to do it, or we can also take somebody who, is just a beginning reader. They're ready to learn to read, but they're not in a place where somebody can teach them, and then somebody reaches out to you to work with them. Like, that's just as like awesome when you get to be able to work with them in that situation, in that scenario as well. I absolutely love it. And we had the question, somebody had asked the question about the assessment report. And that is actually one of the things that people who go through my reading interventionist course, like Justine and Cindy, I go through like detailed, like how to do the assessment and also how to write up that assessment. And I give a template of the assessment report so that they have something that you can write on right away, be able to utilize it. It's got all the graphs and all that kind of stuff on there, the charts, so that you can easily put the data on inside of there and then explain the data so that parents can understand it. And next week, if you guys didn't happen to notice, I am going to be doing a free webinar called How to Close the Reading Gap, a free year with 8 to 12 hours of instruction. So if you didn't have an opportunity yet to sign on up, definitely click that link. I know Beth gave a link earlier. Let me see. Yep, I'm going to grab that right here and get it. So all you have to do when you take a look at this, you're going to see this form come on up, How to Close the Reading Gap. And then you're going to send the details right here. So you'll type in your name and then send the details. But then the next step here is to go back into your email. Because a lot of people, because there's a double opt-in, they're not receiving emails from me. And the reason for that is for a cleaner email format with GDPR being compliant. So you have to go into your email and say that you wish to receive emails from me if you sign on up and you want the details. So definitely sign on up for that. I'll put the link right inside of here. I put my YouTube link. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to put this link here, right on in here for you guys. So this is for the webinar, you guys. So definitely come and join us for that webinar so that you can learn more. And I know Justine and Cindy, you guys both were on that webinar when we did it before you joined. What was your experience as you went through the webinar?
Let's see. So, I mean, I can't remember because it's been it's been a few months, but I do remember that I was probably already sold right before doing it. So it was a no-brainer for me, I think. I can't remember. I think I signed up before the webinar even ended, right? When you're still talking. And then, because then you get like another extra little free something if you know how there's like, if you do it like right now in the next 5 minutes,
yeah,
you can also get like a list of something. I can't remember, unfortunately, right now. But
yeah. So we do talk about inside of the webinar more about the reading interventionist program, so that if you wanted to learn more and continue learning, you can. But there's also information that you'll be able to learn about teaching reading to kids as well. And it's very systematic and approach for you to know, how do I specifically do this online? What tools, what resources can I use so that my students can get results? What was your experience as you went through it, Cindy?
Well, I feel like I'm in the same place as Justine because I went through the reading interventionist program. That was so outstanding. It really helped you delve right into, how am I going to assess? What am I looking for? What are parents looking for too? And then how to put it in their language, the things you're going to focus on in instruction.
Yeah.
Oh, pretty amazing.
Aww.
Yeah,
well, I'm so glad.
I keep referring to that book, but anyway, it's this one. I don't know if you can see it, but
yes.
Yeah. So
how funny is it? So I'm redoing that book right now.
Yeah, no, I love this one. Job Security for Life in Teaching, How to Become an Online Tutor. This is how I got into Joanne's world. And in here, in this book, you actually talk about the reports and doing the assessment and all that kind of stuff. That's how I got like, okay, wait, I got to learn how to do that. How does she? This was amazing. This was so synergistic because I had read this book. I had ordered it. I got it. I read the whole thing in the morning. Then I had to leave and go do a teaching afternoon. But you know, I was like, oh, how does she do that? I want to know more. And by the time I got back, I'd already received in my email, you know, the information about the webinar for the reading course. And so I was like, okay, yes, sign me up for that right now. So that's how it all started.
Wow. And I don't even, then that is like just synergistic because I don't always hold that course, as you know, like I only open it up every like 3 months. So
it was amazing. It was just like, oh, wow.
That's what I want. That's what I need right now. I need to sign up for that. Yeah. I love it. That's awesome. I'm so glad. So you definitely are going to want to check out just even if you guys just come for the webinar, right? And you just learn like the tips that I'm going to teach you, you're going to be able to learn, you know, the 3 things that you can do to make sure that you're giving the best instruction for your reading students, right? And you could leave from that webinar having a good outline and framework for what it is that you need to do. Some people like the continued education. They're like, no, give me more. I want to know exactly how you do that. Show me step by step. And that's what then the Reading Interventionist program does. I show you step by step exactly how to do what it is that I do. And be able to get the kinds of results that you want to be able to get with your students. Because at the end of the day, I want you guys to be able to get results with your students, because if you get results, that means I'm able to impact more students, right? And so I care about you being able to get the best instruction in order to make that happen. So I'm not somebody here who's just like trying to make like a quick buck from somebody or anything like that. It really is like a passion of teaching reading and being able to share that with other people so that you can make this a lifetime endeavor for yourself as well. So let's talk about some of what are some of your favorite reasons that you love working with kids in reading? Why do you love working with kids in reading?
And you're talking to Cindy and I, or are you talking also to the... Okay.
Cindy and you, yep. It'll take them another 30 seconds before they hear the question.
I think it's just that, you know, if you can get a child on a good path with reading, you know that's change the trajectory of their life.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's pretty amazing. And Joanne, I just have to thank you so much because your reading intervention program just, it doesn't waste your time with things you don't need. And when I was in college, when I went back to college at age 42, oh my gosh, the stuff they taught, I didn't really use in the classroom.
Right.
And then, you know, you learn how to help people. I don't know, your program just really is very precise and very focused. And it's like you have a mission. And I want to be a part of that mission of helping children regain that confidence. Who doesn't love reading? Maybe there are some people.
You know, you've really hit on something important. A lot of people think in order for me to teach reading online, I need to be dyslexia certified, or I need to take the Orton Gillingham program, or I need to go back to school for my master's. And I'm going to tell you, I did all of that, and it did not give me what I needed. I still felt like I was missing something. So if you feel like you're still missing something, going back to classroom learning isn't necessarily the next best step if you want to learn how to tutor reading online. Because they're not going to show you how to do it online, A. B, they're not going to show you how to tutor at all. They're going to go into reading theory. Golly, is that boring, I have to tell you. Like, you are sitting there and you're just reading these books and you feel like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I felt like a very uneducated person reading these books because I was like, what are they saying? Now, I am not one of those people, you guys. I'm one of those people that is like, look, here's how regular people understand it. So that's how I'm going to explain it to you. It doesn't make sense for me to use all these like higher level educational terms. If I use an educational term, I define it. I tell you more about what it is in practicality, in ways that you can understand it, so that you're not sitting there like, what's the difference between phonemic awareness and phonics? I don't get it. Like, you read the books and it gets so confusing. You can have somebody make one little connection with you of saying, phonemic awareness you can teach with the lights off because it's just sounds, and phonics you can teach with the lights on because you're looking at the letters. That easy, right? And they make it so difficult inside of the books to understand that concept. So yeah, it can be really, really crazy. But thank you. I really appreciate that, because that was my goal. I had been through so many terrible trainings. I've gone through all of the education. However, the only education that really mattered for me was when I went through the Reading First grant, and I got a ton of professional development from them. They still had some of that back stuff because it has to be, scientifically based and proven and blah, blah, blah. Great. I care about that stuff. So you guys know I care about all that stuff. All my stuff is scientific proven. It is scientific based, but I don't always need to have the backstory to try it out and see if it works for kids. Right? Like, it just isn't always necessary before I can move forward. So, Justine, what do you love about teaching reading?
Well, one thing I love about teaching reading is that that this is something that people need, I guess, right? Because remember, Italian was always my thing that I was always trying to wonder, could I tutor Italian, or can I get a job using Italian somehow? And the thing is yeah, Italian's nice and everything like that, but you don't really need it, It's so reading is so great because everybody needs reading. And it's a real need for the parents. It's a real source of anxiety and worry for them. So you're really helping people. You're meeting their need. And then, of course, the children themselves, they need the reading, and they're going to need that their entire life. So I think that's why it's so satisfying for me, is because, you have this business now of people really have this need, and you can serve it. So it's a service, right, to a need, and not just like a want, like, oh, learning Italian. Yeah.
So any tips that you guys have for people who are thinking of teaching reading, or they're already teaching reading, but they could definitely use a few tips or pointers in how to do it better? Any tips for them?
Are you going to say something, Cindy? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Pass the torch. All right, we're going to start with Justine.
Okay. I was just going to add on, I guess, a little bit to what you were just saying about thinking, I need to have dyslexia training now in Oregon Gillingham, because, of course, I have those thoughts all the time. And but I read a lot about dyslexia and other reading difficulties. And I think it all does, though, keep coming back to, it doesn't really matter that much what label the child has, because everybody needs really to go through the phonics, get that real foundation on the phonics. And I think you can address whatever symptom it is they have, whatever you name it, There are going to be some people that are going to require you to have the OG, and so you won't get that client or that job. But on the other hand, there's so many of these kids that you can reach and teach, and you can just make it a little bit more multisensory for some of them too, I think. And you can even do that online, because you can have them get certain supplies. And also, of course, you can do, air drawing and that kind of thing. So there's ways to make it more multisensory, even online.
Yeah. Well, and even inside of Sally Shaywitz's book, she says that the science has not been released yet on whether multisensory approaches are the only way to teach kids with dyslexia. And so the research actually hasn't, the scientific research hasn't been proven yet. It doesn't mean it won't, but it hasn't been proven yet. And I've actually been able to teach kids with dyslexia without having a huge hands-on approach to teaching reading. Are there certain aspects that are hands-on? Sure. It's not the same kind of the like OG kind of hands-on. But I think what's really important is best teaching practices. Are you putting best teaching practices in place when you are teaching these kids? Or are you just kind of throwing the dart at the wall? And I think sometimes when we can get into a program, we can get stuck in making sure that we're following the program lesson by lesson versus really listening to the child and what it is that they need. And so then we focus on the wrong thing, right? We focus on the program more versus focusing on the child, which needs the most of our time and our effort. Yeah. So I think it's really important. Yeah. Go ahead, Cindy.
I was just going to say that in that reading interventionist program, when you talked about the 6 vowel patterns, that is so crystal clear. And it's definitely something any child can look at and put their words that they're working on in there. And I thought that was an exceptionally great tool, bossy R's and 2 vowel talkers and open and closed syllables. And then adding with that the spot and dot, which I did with my grandson because he was coming into harder words and not being able to break them up. And so we just went through spot and dot, and he caught on pretty quickly.
They do catch on very quickly. I think sometimes we make things really complicated for kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the programs do a lot of times is they actually complicate the process for them. If a kid is struggling with reading SH, I don't have to do an entire lesson of SH. Just have them read some words with SH with patterns they know. If they know the IP, ship. If they know the ACK pattern, shack, right? Like put patterns in front of them they know and have them read some words with the SH pattern. They'll be able to read it. They'll be able to hold on to it. They'll be fine. They'll get it. So it's not like you have to go through like these long, complicated lessons to get them. Like, shimmy. We need to shimmy our body because shimmy starts with shimmy and like do all this kind of stuff. Like we don't have to do that. Yeah, you certainly got the edge today, didn't you? Like, and then they go on for another 30 minutes, right? Reading is about reading. So the more that I can get the child into reading text and actual text and real books, the more successful you're going to be with teaching that child to read. Hands down.
And when a child that comes to you that's struggling doesn't fit, it's just like if you've had more than one child learned to walk at 9 months and the other one at 15 months, you're thinking, are they ever going to walk?
Yeah.
They're different. And to try to force a child to fit into a program instead of actually really carefully looking and trying to see, okay, what is the gap? What is he missing? And how can I help,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it could be that he doesn't have the muscles yet to do it, right? So you could work on strengthening like his leg muscles if he's trying to walk, right? Or different things. But at the end of the day, it's when you can figure out what's happening, then you can start coming up with solutions and closing that gap. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining us today, chatting about reading, different tips about reading. I know we had some beginning difficulties with the looping music that was happening. So I apologize for that, you guys. But I'm so glad that you were able to still stick with us, join us, and definitely join us for the free webinar next week where I'll be teaching you how to be able to close that gap with a full year with 8 to 12 hours of instruction. And thanks you guys for joining us today, Justine and Cindy, and sharing your wisdom and your advice with us. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.